Thank you so much, Natsumi, for that fantastic introduction. I'm super excited to be here with all of you today to speak about our work protecting the endangered okapi and its habitat in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So let me go ahead and share our screen, or my screen, rather. Okay, can everyone see that? Perfect. Okay, so my name is Lucas Meers, and I am the Conservation Program Officer for the Okapi Conservation Project. I have been with the project for the past, it'll be 6 years this year. I started in 2016, helping send some marketing emails occasionally, but then that led to a full-time role, and now I help coordinate a lot of our fundraising efforts to support our programs over in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the Okapi Wildlife Reserve where we work, and also facilitate and cultivate our relationships with all of our zoo partners, which is why I'm here today. I'm very excited to finally give a presentation to our friends over in Japan. This is something that we've been talking about doing for several years, and I'm glad that it's finally coming to fruition. If only I could be there in person, I would love to be there. But I'm very excited to talk to you about our programs today. You learned a little bit about Okapi right before this. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we protect the endangered okapi and the habitat where we live. I do want to reiterate that I am just sharing the stories of our work from our staff over in the DRC. I would love for them to be on this call with us right now and help give me a presentation, but our bandwidth in the middle of the rainforest is not great. We do have a weekly call with them, and oftentimes it gets canceled or postponed due to inclement weather because we have to unplug all of our electronics to preserve our internet routers. Plus, we want to make sure that we're able to give you a good presentation. I am based in Florida today. I'm giving this presentation from my office in Florida, but I do go over to DRC several times per year. Not recently with COVID, there's been a few travel restrictions, but I hope to get back later this year. And so without further ado, I will get started. The Democratic Republic of Congo is arguably the most biodiverse country in all of Africa. It consistently ranks at the top of the lists in the number of mammal species, number of bird species, number of reptile and amphibian species. There's over 900 species of butterflies found throughout the entire country. It's an incredibly biodiverse place with so many different types of animals and plants finding their ecological niche within their habitats. The DRC is home to over 13 species of primates. Several animals are endemic, like the critically endangered bonobo there in the center of the slide, the Congo peafowl just to the right, the Growers gorillas, which are the largest species of gorilla in the entire world, and of course, the enigmatic okapi, the animal that we're here to speak about today. When you're accessing this area of the world from Florida, it takes me about 3 days to travel to our specific location and several plane flights. Here is a charter flight flying over into the reserve as we're entering the reserve to land in our airstrip where we have our office in Apulu. You can see how far and how dense the rainforest is. This is an incredibly intact rainforest. It is the second largest rainforest in the world behind the Amazon, but it is one of the most intact rainforests. And so part of our work is making sure that that rainforest remains intact, because the okapi need large undisturbed tracts of rainforest in order to live and thrive. And also protecting these forests protects the communities that live in and around them, and also protects our global population, because these are the lungs of the planet. They filter out so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere in order to make sure that we have fresh air to breathe. This is a closed canopy forest, and what that means is very little light reaches the forest floor. And so it creates this cool stripe effect with the light, and it kind of, the okapi uses it to its advantage, because as you can see, as this okapi walks just a few meters in front of our camera trap, and when it stops and stands still, it completely disappears into the forest. This helps explain why they weren't discovered by Western scientists until 1901, because of the difficult rainforest conditions for people walking through them, and also the reclusive nature of okapi, because okapi will always hear you before you see them. The okapi is also a very loved and cherished symbol of the country too. Some would go as far as saying it is a national symbol of the country. So many things are named after okapi. Okapi bottled water, there's okapi on stamps, the okapi 50-cent Congolese franc, it's featured on that currency. There's okapi gum, okapi cigarettes, and Radio Okapi is the largest radio network in the entire country, and that is the main form of information sharing and communication, especially in the more remote areas of the country, especially like where we're located in the middle of the forest. Several people don't have access to electricity or televisions, and radio is the main form of access to information and opportunities for education. The okapi is so beloved that it's actually featured on the insignia or the patches of the ICCN eco guards that patrol all of the protected areas in Democratic Republic of Congo. The okapi is only found in a specific area in the northeastern DRC, but it is the symbol of conservation for all of the protected areas of Democratic Republic of Congo. And ICCN stands for Institute in Congo for the Conservation of Nature. They are the government authority that is tasked with protecting all of the protected areas throughout Democratic Republic of Congo. 14% of the entire country's landmass is under protected status. And that's national parks, co-management units, reserves, and they're in charge of arresting poachers, patrolling the forest, removing snares, documenting any wildlife signs. And we work very closely with the ICCN eco guards that patrol the Okapi Wildlife Reserve where we work. And so Okapi Conservation Project is actually 5 years older than the reserve itself. We were founded in 1987, but the Okapi Wildlife Reserve was created in 1992 through a collaborative support structure of other non-governmental organizations or NGOs supporting the Congolese government in creating and protecting this area. It is 13,700 square kilometers. And to put that size into perspective, it is about half the size of the Chubu region of Japan. I did have to look that up. I hope I pronounced it correctly. But to give you a perspective of how large this area is, there's about 250 ICCN eco guards that patrol this area on a regular basis, about 20 days per month. Each eco guard is patrolling about 20 days per month. And to put things into perspective, Virunga National Park, where you can often see the gorillas, very well known for gorilla tourism and gorilla conservation. Virunga National Park is about 1/3 of the size of the reserve, but they have over 300 or 350 rangers that are actually patrolling the reserve. So we have a very much larger area to patrol. To ensure that the okapi is remained protected. This specific area was chosen for the reserve because it's thought to be the highest density of okapi population throughout their region or their range. Their range is that orange color on the map that you can see there. And it's believed that the Okapi Wildlife Reserve, based on fecal counts and fecal studies, that this is the highest density of Okapi populations. We aren't entirely positive if it's still the densest population, densest area of Okapi, because we have not surveyed the areas outside of the protected areas in recent times due to insecurity. This area of the world, this area of the country is known for its insecurity and rebel groups and rogue militia attacks, and it is a common occurrence that our staff sometimes encounter, or the people of the area encounter. And we have safety precautions in place for all of our staff to make sure that they can travel safely and are aware of where the rebel groups are located. To dive a little bit deeper into the Okapi Wildlife Reserve and how it was created, typically when a national park is created, all the people that are within that boundary have to move outside of the national park. People are not allowed to live inside of a national park. However, with a reserve, there's a collaborative agreement that people can still live their livelihoods within this area without being kicked out. And we find compromises and collaborations to allow them to provide for their livelihoods while also allowing the animals and the plants that we love so much to remain intact and untouched. And so as you can see, these little white areas along the border of the reserve, these are agricultural zones where people, the communities where they live, can continue to subsistence farm for themselves and sell the surplus in the local markets so they can farm and provide food to feed their families. And then there are these brown, almost green areas. They're a little bit bigger around the edge as well. These are subsistence hunting zones for the indigenous Mabuti. This region of the world is home to the indigenous Mabuti and FA pygmies, the smallest people of the world. And so in order to help preserve their cultural traditions and their traditional hunting methods, these subsistence hunting zones were set up to allow them to continue hunting in a sustainable fashion without impacting any of the endangered animals or any of the fully protected areas, which are the lime green areas, the Zone Central and the Zone du Sud. No human activities are allowed in those areas unless previously approved by the government. So that is fully untouched area. So the indigenous Mabuti have a very critical role to play in this area, in this region. So not only by the creation of by creating the reserve, we're protecting the biodiversity or the biological diversity of the area, but we're also protecting the cultural diversity of this region. We are helping protect the traditional Mabuti customs. They are traditional net hunters. You can see in the middle photo, this Mabuti gentleman is actually carrying a net on his head. And so they actually go into the forest and they will hunt small antelope like duikers or other small rodents, small mammals for protein sources. And when they catch something, they immediately stop the hunt. And that's what they're going to eat for the day or the meal. And so by creating this reserve, we're protecting the biological diversity, all the animals that were on the earlier slide with the Okapi, but also the cultural diversity of the Mabuti, indigenous Mabuti population. Threats to Okapi, it's primarily deforestation, but that comes in different forms. The number one threat to Okapi habitat is the slash and burn farming. This is small scale farming where farmers will typically cut down trees on a plot of land, and then they'll plant their plants, their vegetables, their garden, and all of those plants will actually take up all of the nutrients in the soil. And then the next year they'll cut down another plot of land and further encroaching into the forest, thereby destroying Okapi habitat. Gold mining is another issue. Both legal and illegal gold mining is an issue because in order to mine gold, you have to clear the area of the trees, clear the riverbanks, and you're losing habitat as these mines grow and more people are coming in to mine more gold. You're destroying more and more habitat. And then what comes along with gold mining is poaching. So if you're in the middle of the forest mining for gold, you need to eat something. And so oftentimes they will set up snares for bushmeat poaching, whether that's duikers or monkeys, and those snares are indiscriminate. They will trap all animals, including Okapi. Luckily, in the reserve, we mostly see nylon snares, which Okapi can break right through, but we do see 10 to 15% of the snares that the ICC and EcoGuards collect, they are metal, and Okapi cannot escape metal snares. Poaching also comes in the form of elephant tusks. And so just the presence of people and the presence of poachers in the forest deters Okapi from that area, and they'll avoid that area. So the poaching for both bushmeat and elephants both affect Okapi as bycatch. So our work takes the form of three pillars. We support ICCN, the EcoGuards. We have several community engagement programs, and then we also coordinate a lot of conservation education programs. For ICCN support, for the Institute in Congo for the Conservation of Nature, we have provided support for them in various capacities ever since our existence. Previously, we had constructed several buildings for them, housing for them, also facilitating and constructing guard posts at the entrance and exit of all the reserve. All cars are checked as they enter the reserve, and they're checked to make sure that they exit the reserve. And so we have built several of patrol posts for the ICCN Eco Guards. We've also paid their salaries. We've paid bonuses for incentivizing them to collect more and more snares and be out in the forest on patrol even more. It's taken the form of providing equipment such as satellite phones, communication equipment, tents, flashlights, cameras, that sort of thing to document any illegal activities or what they're doing on their patrol. More recently, we've been providing healthcare support because we need to ensure that they are healthy and on patrol. So we've been providing healthcare for them, rations for their patrols, in order to allow them to stay multi-day patrols going farther into the forest, reaching untouched areas that haven't been patrolled before. So we work under a contract of collaboration with them every 5 years in order to conduct our programs. We also provide a lot of support for them. So we have a very collaborative agreement with ICCN Eco Guards. They're some of our very, very, very good friends, and we enjoy supporting them. Have enjoyed supporting them over the several years. I think what we're best known for is our holistic approach to our community assistance and engagement programs. We have what we call our agroforestry program, which is the photo in the top left. We facilitate the distribution of food seeds like beans, peanuts, rice, tomato seeds, eggplant seeds, and we distribute all of those seeds to several farmers around the reserve. And we also pair that with tree seedlings. So these are nitrogen fixing trees in the legume family that actually put nutrients and nitrogen back into the soil. So it actually lengthens the life of the soil so that they can continuously plant their gardens on the same plot of land year after year, so they don't have to keep going further into the forest. We also share different techniques such as crop rotation, but what we want them to do is live their lives a little bit more sustainably to not only protect the forest, but they're also improving their livelihoods, because with these techniques, they will increase their crop yields something like 25% more than without these nitrogen fixing plants. And by using these different techniques, they can lengthen the life of their soil up to 10 years. So they can use the same plot of land up to 10 years at a time without further going into the forest, thereby protecting okapi habitat. In the bottom left is healthcare. So we actually built, operate, and run the Okapi dispensary in Ipulu, which is a relatively large medical facility where we treat and care for all the ICCN Eco Guards and their families, all of our Okapi Conservation Project staff and their families, the staff of the Wildlife Conservation Society who help run the reserve with the ICCN Eco Guards. And then we also work very closely with 20 rural health centers all around the reserve, providing them with medicines and supplies, beds, etc., to help them treat their patients. And so we provide healthcare for several communities around the reserve. Healthcare is the absolute #1 need and request for people in this community. Waterborne illnesses are very common. We provide clean water sources for communities. But we want to make sure that the rangers and OCP staff are healthy so that they can continue their work protecting the rainforest. But then we also want to make sure that the community is healthy as well. And so by us as a conservation project providing this service to the community, it opens up a lot of dialogue and conversation about why it's important to protect the rainforest. And it provides kind of an opportunity for education with the people that are visiting the Okapi dispensary. Notice we also named it Okapi Dispensary because everything is named after Okapi. And we also, in the bottom right-hand corner, we also work very closely with women's groups. We have 5 women's groups around the reserve. Research has shown that involving women in your conservation planning and conservation initiatives, it is proven to help you be more successful, because women tend to think much more long-term into the future. They tend to be a little bit better planners. Plus, the women in this region are the primary resource gatherers for their families. So they're the ones that are planting and harvesting the food. They're the ones that go into the forest to collect any food if they're looking for any forest products, non-timber forest products. They're the ones that have that close relationship with the environment. And so it's critical that we involve women's groups in all of our efforts. So we provide capacity building opportunities for women to allow them to diversify their incomes, generate higher incomes for their families, which would hopefully deter them and their family members, or reducing the need for them and their family members to be involved in any illegal activities or any activities that may harm the forest or destroy the forest. But also having a higher income, they can keep their children in school, where we have several of our conservation programs. So by providing these diversified incomes for these women, it definitely helps our programs. And it also provides an opportunity for us to meet with them and talk about reasons why and how to protect the forest, how to expand upon their protection of Okapi and the rainforest that we love so much. And in the top right, of course, I cannot leave out the indigenous Mabuti. They are a critical component of running this reserve. Protecting the Okapi also protects their indigenous culture. They have a voice at every table, every meeting, decision meeting within the reserve. And we incorporate them in a lot of the work that we do around the reserve and our camera trap studies. They participate in collecting all of our camera trap data. And then there are also several Mabuti, indigenous Mabuti, that have become ICCN eco guards, where they themselves are actually going on patrol in the forest. They have so much indigenous knowledge of this region, and so it's important that they have just as loud of a voice at the table as we do, and as the ICCN eco guards. With our women's groups, I want to go into a little bit depth about what we've done through 2020. So during COVID, it was a very, very difficult time for us. There was a lot of uncertainty, as with everyone around the world. Luckily, I think being in such a remote area, it really did protect a lot of our staff and all of our communities from COVID. I'm not aware of many cases in Upolu, of COVID cases in Upolu, but in some of the nearby population centers in Mombasa and Niania and Wamba, there were several COVID-19 cases. Also, potentially due to the low case number is the access to testing. There's not much access to testing in such a remote area, but as an added precaution, our women's groups actually started making masks to sell and distribute in the local markets to protect their fellow community members. Luckily, there was not much resistance to these safety procedures, safety practices within the communities in northeastern DRC. We didn't really receive much pushback, unlike in the United States, where there was so much pushback with mask wearing and vaccination. In DRC, especially around the Okapi Wildlife Reserve, because we've dealt with so many transmitted viruses like Ebola, they were easily adaptable to hand washing stations, wearing masks, not shaking hands, maintaining social distancing. Any meeting that you were not allowed to have more than 10 people attending at a time. And so we were quick to adapt, and while we were also providing healthcare or health protection for the community, these women were also generating income for their families by selling these masks. And so this past year in 2021, one of the major advancements that we've been doing for all of our 5 women's groups is creating these women's centers. In 2019, we constructed our first women's center. It was an enclosed building that allowed women to continue working uninterrupted, because all of our women's groups typically meet in an open air facility like the one here, where they are subject to inclement weather. They typically meet 2 to 3 times per week, but if it's raining, they can't meet. Therefore, they can't generate income they can't make items to generate income for their families. And so what we wanted to start doing was provide covered spaces for the women to work, to store their materials so that they could last longer, also provide office space for our educators and agroforestry teams. So in Mombasa in 2019, we built our first women's center. And then this past year in 2021 in Upolu, we built a brand new women's center right here. You can see our little goat friend. And so these are covered spaces for the women to meet and work and discuss plans for how they're going to expand and generate their income. This building in Upolu is also home to our new radio station. I talked earlier about how radio is the primary form of communication throughout the reserve, and we have several radio broadcasts that we distribute across the landscape. And so now this women's group building not only houses this women's center not only houses our women's group, but it also houses the new Upolu radio station with a brand new antenna that was actually installed after this photo was taken. But the brand new antenna allows us to reach the southern 1/3 of the reserve, which is a massive landscape with all of our educational radio broadcasts on protecting the forest, promoting a lot of our sustainable livelihood programs, and really generating an interest and a love for Okapi and protecting the rainforest. Here is the video of the Upolu Women's Group entering the building for the very first time. We opened this building on International Women's Day, March 3rd of last year. And since then, we've provided a several-week training where we brought in expert seamstresses to share a lot of knowledge and skills development on how to expand the types of items that they can make, diversify the types of items that they make, but also increase the quality of the work that they're making. So they actually made these dresses that they're wearing today in this video. And so it's been hugely successful. And so we have 3 more women's groups that do not have buildings yet. And we're currently fundraising for those final 3 to provide these opportunities for women to diversify their incomes and generate a lot more income for their family to pay for their children's school fees or provide any construction materials for their homes. All of the money that they generate from this women's group, it goes into a shared pot that any of the women can pull upon if they fall down on hard times and need access to funds to purchase food for their family or school uniforms for their children. Conservation education is the third and final pillar. Every single one of our programs comes with an element of conservation education because we always want to tie what our program is back to protecting Okapi and the rainforest. And so with agroforestry, we talk about why these techniques work and why we're wanting to do this and why it benefits both Okapi because it keeps people from intruding into the forest, and why it benefits people because it increases the crop yields for your family. And so the conservation education pillar comes in different forms. So we pair, there's always a presentation or some sort of education component when we're distributing the seeds or the tree seedlings for our agroforestry program. We create and print calendars, educational conservation calendars for the entire region, all the large cities in the region. We distribute about 3,000 calendars. And each month has a new captivating photo and a message on conservation education, why it's important to protect the forest, why it's illegal to gold mine in the reserve, etc. We also have lots of radio broadcasts. I think in 2021, we did over 260 radio broadcasts on topics ranging from the importance of ICC and eco guards and what their role at the reserve is. The indigenous Mabuti, we interviewed several Mabuti chiefs talking about their history with the region, their traditional knowledge of the land, and how incredibly intertwined their lives are with the rainforest, and why protecting the rainforest also helps protect them as well. We go into classrooms and give presentations to primary and secondary school students. We incorporate them in a lot of our programs as well, especially with reforestation, because getting children to actually participate in planting a tree, they have a close connection with that tree, and therefore they are helping generate a love for the environment and protecting the rainforest. Children are the message multipliers because they'll go to school for the day, they'll learn everything, and then they come home, and what they do is they talk about their school day, at least the primary school kids, they talk about their school day and everything that they learned on how they can protect the rainforest and Okapi. One of our favorite things that we do, and we started this in 2016, was World Okapi Day. So every year on October 18th, regardless of the day of the week, it's always October 18th, we celebrate World Okapi Day all around the world. And so we have a global network of supporters, especially several supporters in Japan, where they celebrate World Okapi Day. But then we also celebrate with several activities inside the Okapi Wildlife Reserve. And we've slowly expanded these celebrations. And now we're celebrating in 8 villages across the reserve. And there's several large cities in Democratic Republic of Congo that have actually taken action and celebrated the World Okapi Day. So cities like Kisangani and the capital Kinshasa, they've had World Okapi Day celebrations, which is really exciting to see how much it has spread across the country over the course of the past several years. When we started World Okapi Day. So mark your calendars for World Okapi Day on October 18th this year. And hopefully you'll be able to participate in several celebrations. And you can visit our website, worldokapiday.org, for resources closer to the date, because we create a lot of resources and photos for everyone to celebrate around the world. In the reserve for World Okapi Day, we always start every day with a huge parade. And so we get the attention of the town by getting everyone to do a parade. We make t-shirts, and then we also host races for competitive races for children to compete for school fees. All schools are private in Democratic Republic of Congo. So if you can't afford school, then you can't stay in school. And so during the day, we do a parade. We do a lot of talking about our programs and the importance of protecting Okapi and the rainforest and how it benefits people as well. And then we end with races and football games where people win cash prizes to pay for their school fees, where they are then exposed to our conservation programming within the schools. And so I want to end, because I know that we're getting close to time and I want to provide an opportunity for everyone to ask questions. I wanted to end with a short 3-minute video that talks a little bit more in depth about some of our accomplishments over the past year in 2021. And it has a little exciting little jingle. And so I hope you enjoy it.